Hello and welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Now that the West, thanks to the United States initiative, is moving forward with confiscating Russian sovereign assets held in foreign banks, the entire world is going to push for de-dollarization. Why? Well, because they understand that if their foreign policy is not aligned with that of the West, they will be sanctioned too, and they will be treated in a similar manner, if not worse. The US dollar is a weapon that nobody will want. It has already become a foreign policy tool, which is precisely why foreign central banks are stockpiling gold month after month for years. The US House of Representatives voted in favor of confiscating, or stealing, I should say, Russian frozen assets. Now I'm waiting to see what the United States Senate decides early this week, and I will definitely share an update here on my channel. Well, this year, Russia is the chair of the BRICS bloc, whose main focus is to develop an alternative to the SWIFT financial payment system. Once the BRICS system is fully launched, we should expect de-dollarization to accelerate, since none of the payments that are settled between China, Russia, Saudi Arabia for crude oil, for gas, and other natural resources, as well as settlements between other bloc's members, none of that will be made in the United States dollar. The BRICS countries overtook the G7 countries' share of the GDP in terms of purchasing power parity back in 2020, 4 years ago. And by 2023, the difference had increased even further. The BRICS now is holding a total of 32% of the world's GDP compared to 30% held by the G7 countries. Once these countries launch an alternative system, the United States dollar status as a global reserve currency will be threatened directly in no time at all. I will remind you that once the petrodollar is gone, it will be over. BRICS nations account for about 42% of global crude oil output, and their goal is to move away from the dollar in trade. By the way, the BRICS bloc represents nearly half, or 46% to be precise, of the world's population. So anyone who says that an alternative financial system will not make a difference, that it will not succeed, is not really telling the truth, or they're just blissfully choosing to ignore the reality. At this time, most global trade that is settled in US dollars moves through the Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, or SWIFT system, in other words. The BRICS payment system is going to become the foundation for the bloc's future economic partnership because, one, it won't be controlled by the United States or any other Western country that could easily sanction, and two, the system is going to be based on a basket of local currencies, not the United States dollar. This is actually the key to its success, in my opinion anyway, because it will help developing countries to truly strengthen their own economies, as opposed to working to support an economy of a country that is thousands of miles away from them, and in addition to that, is unfriendly. The new payment system won't just challenge the dollar's dominance. I believe that it will pose a direct threat to its role as a reserve currency globally. It would drive de-dollarization, which means that there won't be as much demand for the US dollar. And if the United States dollar loses its dominance, what do you think will happen to the US economy? If the United States as a country cannot print money out of thin air, literally, and if it cannot borrow, let's say it's $3 trillion in government deficit as of today, and a surge in spending, those two things combined will likely cause a massive collapse. And yes, if the demand for the dollar weakens, the United States won't be able to borrow because the yield on its US treasuries is already very high, meaning the US has to pay more and more in interest to its investors. So if the government has trouble borrowing to cover its massive spending and its number one expense is interest on its debt, the only question is, how bad will the crash be? That is the only question. How bad will this crash be? Just like with an individual, with you and I, If you max out your credit cards and then you use your entire paycheck to pay interest on your credit cards, you can't afford anything. You can't afford necessities. You can't afford rent or mortgage, food, and other basic necessities. It's very, very simple. The BRICS bloc is not creating an alternative financial system completely from scratch, by the way. In fact, both Russia and China already have their national payment systems in place that will need to be integrated across the entire BRICS bloc. Back in 2014, following the Maidan coup d'etat in Kiev, Russia developed the system for transmitting financial messages. The head of Russian Central Bank, Lena, recently announced that the system has 159 foreign participants in 20 countries. This is as of 2024. These are mostly developing countries, but they do include banks in Switzerland and in Germany. China has already gone through a similar process, by the way. Its new system is called the Cross-Border Interbank Payment System. China developed this not out of the blue, of course. You might recall that several years ago, I believe this was 5 years ago now, that the United States tried to force China, or we should say encourage China, to join it in sanctioning North Korea. Of course, this is not something that China would be willing to do. So the countries have been developing their own financial systems for years now, and it is truly in their best interest to continue doing so. Now, after Yellen went to China and effectively threatened it with further sanctions and trade barriers for producing as much as China chooses to, the US lawmakers are now pushing to effectively steal Russia's sovereign assets and give the funds to Ukraine's Zelensky. And Antony Blinken is traveling to China this week to make it stop cooperating in terms of trade with Russia. The BRICS bloc countries have ample opportunities and enough reasons to accelerate their move away from the dollar and the compromised financial payment system that is used by the West, SWIFT, and is used against them. Will the BRICS bloc new financial system be successful? That is a very important question. That is a big one. But the bloc's long-term success will largely depend on how successful and how efficient this new payment system is between member countries. But given that China and Russia do have advanced technological capabilities, I do not see why their system would not succeed. After all, their economies depend on it. The BRICS bloc is set to expand this year. New members will be announced in October at a summit in Kazan in Russia. So far, there are more than 40 nations that have already expressed interest in BRICS membership. I will update you once the US Senate votes for or against the confiscation of assets. Definitely stay tuned if you're interested, but I think it is safe to say that we will likely see a vote in favor. Thank you for watching. Give this video a thumbs up, consider sharing it, and subscribe both on Rumble and YouTube. Remember that Rumble is a great opportunity to make sure that you have my backup channel and that you can access content just in case. I would love to have you back for my next one. And if you enjoy reading, find me on Substack. You will find all of my social links in the video description below. I'll see you in my new one tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.